guys, Ian from RTO here. Welcome to another live album ranking on a Friday. Before we crack on with Friday, just a great thank you for everyone that popped in to the live stream last night, and including a legend from America, Mr. Norman Masloff. He was in what we now call the Rankers Gallery. Came in and said hi, which was brilliant. Lots of people that are coming over from Rachel's Ghost to come and say hi to me, which is fantastic. And also like to thank my special guests, as usual. Last night it was a great show. We had Richard McCook on, who, as you know, we do quite a lot of collaborations. Once again, he lost his father this week, so we'll say it again. I'm sorry to hear this, Richard, and hope you feel okay. And he hasn't been well himself, so he's had a pretty torrid time of it, as poor Richard, but it was lovely to see him last night. Anyway, today, live albums. We have got a monster. It's Dio. Great band, fronted of course by Mr. Ronnie James Dio. Made some fantastic albums, and live, all good live albums, except that one of them, which I think is a bit of a cop out, but there you go. I saw them once, and that was when they supported Alice Cooper, and it was brilliant. That was on the Magic at all. Brilliant concert. So Dio have released 7 official albums and 1 unofficial, but I wanted to put into this list, so we're going to look at 8 today. So coming in at number 8 is a sort of live album EP that they released in 1986, and it's called Intermission. Now, this was recorded on the first part of the Sacred Heart tour that Vivian Campbell was guitaring. Now, Vivian left halfway through the tour, and he was replaced by Craig Goldley. So the band wanted to do something to represent the new lineup, which is fair enough. So they went into the studio and quickly recorded a song called Time to Burn, which they added to this album. Now, this was recorded at the San Diego Sports Arena in California, and they recorded the studio track at the record plant in LA. So all did it very quickly. So on here you've got Ronnie James Dio, of course, Vivian Campbell guitar solos, and Craig Goldley on the guitar on Time to Burn. And this is the bit I didn't like: overdub rhythm guitar on the live tracks. The great Jimmy Bain on bass, Cloud Schnell on keyboards, and Vinny Appice on the drums. So this little EP type thing opened up with The King of Rock and Roll. Good track. Rainbow in the Dark, Sacred Heart, Time to Burn, which is the new track. I like this track. It's got some nice riffs, but we'll talk about that more later. And then we get a little one of the medleys that Dio always did, bringing in some of the old stuff. And this one's starts off with Rock and Roll Children, and in comes Long Live Rock and Roll, Man on the Silver Mountain, followed by We Rock, which is a really good show closer. Okay, to me this is a bit of a hodgepodge. I didn't like that they decided to put the rhythm guitar of Craig on top of Vivian, which doesn't make it a live album then, does it? And this is probably why this is at the bottom of the pile. But I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 because it's Dio. Okay then, coming in at number 7 is this sort of unofficial album that came out about 2018, something like that, somewhere in the 2000s. It was recorded in 1983, and it's called On Wings of Fire. It's a radio broadcast, and it was recorded at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium on the 7th of October 1983. So it's at the beginning of the Holy Diver tour. So you've got that lineup of Jimmy Bain, Vinnie Appice, Vivian Campbell, Claude Schnell and Ronnie on the vocals. So you get this intro from the radio DJ at the time, which is great, and it goes straight into Stand Up and Shout. Absolute killer track. One of the great opening tracks of an album, let alone to open a set. Straight Through the Heart, Shame on the Night, bit of Stargazer, can't go wrong there. Then we get a Vivian Campbell's guitar solo, bit of Heaven and Hell from Black Sabbath, Holy Diver, Rainbow in the Dark, and then we get Man on the Silver Mountain and Starstruck. Wasn't the whole show because it sort of faded out and that, but yeah, it's a quite, I mean, I got this quite cheap, so I didn't pay lots of Spondoolix for it. But I think it's a good little bit of nostalgia, and they play really well on this. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 6. This is an album that was a video, and it came out on DVD as well. It was recorded in New York City in 2002 and released on DVD in 2003, and then they put it out as a CD in 2005, and it was recorded at the Roseland Ballroom in New York City in 2002, and it's Evil or Divine live in New York City. Now the lineup for the band at this stage was Ronnie James Dio, Doug Ulrich on the guitars, Jimmy Bain on the bass, Simon Wright on drums, and Scott Warren played the keyboards. Now these songs are this is from the Killing the Dragon tour. So it opens up with the title track, Killing the Dragon. Sounds really good live. It's a good track, but live it's got more atmosphere. Then we get like a little bit of a medley. It's 2 tracks joined together. First track is Egypt, The Chains Are On, which is a classic. And then a classic from Black Sabbath, Children of the Sea. 2 great songs glued together. Then we get Push, which is on the Killing the Dragon. The brilliant Stand Up and Shout. Then Rock and Roll, Don't Talk to Strangers, Man on the Silver Mountain, and then a long guitar solo. Yeah, I don't want long guitar solos on live albums. They're boring. Long Live Rock and Roll, Fever Dreams, great track. Holy Diver, Heaven and Hell, The Last in Line, Rainbow in the Dark, and We Rock. It's flawless, really. Okay, the solo goes on for an age, but it's still good. Some great tracks off the Dragon album. So I'm going to give this an 8.3 because it's got a lot of atmosphere on it, and you can hear the crowd having a good time, which is always a bonus. Okay then, coming in at number 5. Now this is an album that was released on CD and DVD and Blu-ray in 2014, but it was actually recorded at the Hammersmith Odeon, or the Hammersmith Apollo as it's called on it, but to me it'll always be the Hammy Odeon, in 1993, live in London. And the band at the time were Ronnie James Dio, Vinnie Appice, Jeff Pilson on the bass and Tracy G on the guitar, and this was recorded on the Strange Highways tour. Once again it opens up with Stand Up and Shout. Great opener. Strange Highways. Now I think it sounds a lot better live. A lot of these tracks always sound good live. Don't Talk to Strangers, Evolution, which is awesome on here. Then we get Pain and the guitar solo, a brilliant version of The Mob Rules. Great track. Children of the Sea's on here, a little bit of that. Holy Diver, then we get a little bit of Heaven and Hell. Finish it off with a little bit of Man on the Silver Mountain, a great drum solo from Vinnie. Then back into Heaven and Hell. So you've got this sort of Heaven and Hell that's split and bits added in, which is always good fun. Then we get Jesus, Mary and the Holy Ghost, which is pretty cool live. Hollywood Black, I love that track. It's great live. The Last in Line, wonderful version of that. The brilliant Rainbow in the Dark, and We Rock, and Here's to You. Another really good album. What I like about these Dio live albums, you got different lineups of the band, and it's not always concentrated on the classic tracks. You get these great tracks from some of the later albums, and that's really good to hear. Because you get a lot of bands that put out live albums, it's the same set. These are not. They're always something different, and I like he mixes the older stuff up. One tour you get Heaven and Hell, next time you get Gates of Babylon, all that sort of thing. It's fantastic. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. So coming in at number 4, we have Inferno, Last in Live. It was recorded on the Angry Machines tour in 1996-97 and released in 1998. And it consists of tracks from Brandy James Dio eras of Rainbow, Black Sabbath, Dio's own stuff, and a little bit of Mistreated as well. So the band on this one was Ronnie James Dio, Tracy G, Larry Dennison on bass, Scott Warren keyboards, and Vinny at bass. We get an intro, of course, a grand thing, and this tour opened up with Jesus, Mary and the Holy Ghost. What a start. Another great track. Straight Through the Heart, another classic. Don't Talk to Strangers, a bit of Holy Diver. Drum solo, Into Heaven and Hell, Double Monday, Stand Up and Shout, Hunter of the Heart. Then we get this lovely bit of Mistreated and Catch the Rainbow. Really good how they put them two tracks together. I mean, I reckon Ronnie sings Mistreated as good as David. They've both got powerful voices. But I don't think, when it comes to this stage of their careers, I think Ronnie was still singing it as good as he did when he sang it in Rainbow. David, I don't think he can sing it as good. Well, the last time I saw him, he couldn't. Then we get a guitar solo, a very short one, which is good. Last in Line, Rainbow in the Dark, and the Mob Rules, a little bit of Man on the Silver Mountain, a little bit of Long Live Rock and Roll, and a belting version of We Rock. Great performance. Again, you get different songs from back catalogue of Ronnie. Great album. I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.8. So coming in at number 3. Now, an album that was released in 2013, but it was recorded in 1986 at the Philadelphia Spectrum, and it's called Finding the Sacred Heart live in Philly. So the band for this concert was the second part of the Sacred Heart tour when Craig had joined. So it's with Craig, it's Ronnie, Jimmy, Vinny, and Claude. Opens up with a little intro called Draco Ingus, which is pretty cool. Straight into their King of Rock and Roll, which is absolutely brilliant. Like the Beat of a Harp, sounds a lot better live. It's not got that 80s production in the studio. This is just raw heavy metal rock and roll. Don't Talk to Strangers, Hungry for Heaven. The riffs on these sound a lot better live than in the studio. Last in Line, great version. Children of the Sea. Excuse me, my voice is groggy today. Need a drink. So, Children of the Sea, Holy Diver, great drum solo from Vinny, Heaven and Hell, and then a great little keyboard solo from Claude Schnell, followed by Craig Goldie's guitar solo, which is about 7 minutes. A brilliant version of the song Sacred Heart, which sounds a lot better live. I think it's because the guitar sound a bit more rougher and raunchy. Rock and Roll Children, it sounds great live. Long Live Rock and Roll, Man on the Silver Mountain, and then they throw in the track that they put on Intermission, Time to Burn, And to be quite honest, it's a better version than the studio version. It's a lot heavier. The great Stand Up and Shout, Rainbow in the Dark, We Rock. What 3 great tracks to end this gig with. It's another sterling live album. It's got a lot of material off the first 3 albums, which to me are their best. Love this album, great sound, great atmosphere. I've seen the video that goes to this as well, and it's absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of a 9 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 2. Now this is recorded at Donington, the original Monsters of Rock. Now, disc 1 was recorded in 1983 as part of the Holy Diver tour, and the second disc is from 1987 on the Dream Evil tour. And it also has, of course, lots of Sabbath and Rainbow thrown in. So the band is Ronnie James Dio. Guitars on disc 1 are Vivian Campbell. Disc 2 is Craig Goldley. And Claude Schnell, Jimmy Bain and Vinny Appice appear on both discs. So disc 1 was recorded at their set from 1983. So opens up with the brilliant Stand Up and Shout, Straight Through the Heart. A great version of Children of the Sea. Rainbow in the Dark, Holy Diver. A little bit of drumming from Jimmy, from Vinny even. Then you get a little bit of the opening of Stargazer, which goes into a little guitar solo from Vivian that goes straight into Heaven and Hell. The crowd sound great on this singing that. Then we go to a little bit of Rainbow. We have Man on the Silver Mountain, a little bit of Starstruck, goes back into Man on the Silver Mountain. What a little set that was. Brilliant stuff. Disc 2, so we move on to the 1987. This one opens up with the title track Dream Evil from that album. Great track. Love Dream Evil. Really good track. And then what do they go? They go and do Neon Nights. Absolutely brilliant. Then Naked in the Rain, which is a lovely song off Dream Evil. Rock and Roll Children. Then we go and do a little bit of Rainbow with a little bit of Long Live Rock and Roll. That goes nicely into Last in Line. Then a little diddly bit of Children of the Sea. A little diddly bit of Holy Diver. Goes into a bit of Heaven and Hell. Man on the Silver Mountain. All the Fools Sail Away, which is a great track. Last in Line again. So you've got this little medley of songs put in, sandwich in between the Last in Line. Rainbow in the Dark ends the set. Now, some of the recordings you find at Donington are not very good. It's outdoors, it's in a bowl, there's lots of noise and wind. You get aeroplanes going over the top because it's on the flight path of East Midlands Airport, but there's none of that on this. It's a really good album. I love playing this, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of a 9.3. So my number 1. This is what I call the perfect live album from Dio for me, because one disc is all of my favourite Dio album, and the second disc is some classics from his past. It's Holy Diver live, and disc 1 they performed the whole of Holy Diver, and on disc 2 live versions of other songs from Dio's back catalogue, and this was recorded in 2005 at London's Astoria in London. So on here we have Ronnie James Dio, Doug Aldrich on guitar, Rudy Sarzo on bass, Simon Wright the drums, and Scott Warren on keyboards. So disc 1 is the whole of Holy Diver in running order. So Stand Up and Shout, Holy Diver, Gypsy, Caught in the Middle, Don't Talk to Strangers, Straight Through the Heart, Invisible, Rainbow in the Dark, Shame on the Night. Shame on the Night is long, it's 16 minutes, and it's Lots of little bits in there, drum solos and all sorts. It's great. Disc 2 opens up with Tarot Woman, one of the great openings on the Rising album from Rainbow. Great version of this, and he sings it as good as he would have done in 1976. That's one thing with Ronnie's voice, he never changed. Then we go to the Mob Rules album for the Sign of the Southern Cross. Great version of that. Then we get One Night in the City. Brilliant. Gates of Babylon. Brilliant version on there. And then we get a brilliant version of Heaven and Hell. A little bit of Man on the Silver Mountain. Long Live Rock and Roll. And to end the whole thing, a little bit of We Rock. What a great live package this is. Holy Diver and some great Black Sabbath and Rainbow tracks. What more can a Dio fan ask for? I love this, play this a lot. Especially the second disc with all them great tracks on it live, and Ronnie singing them as good as the day he sang them when he recorded them. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9.5. So there we go. So this is the first of 3. Up next is the brand new album from U2, where it covers it. It's a re-recording album called Songs of Surrender. And then we've got a one-off album by a band called Partners in Crime. Now it's a bit of an 80s supergroup made up of ex-members of Yardbirds and the Mott the Hoople, Status Quo and Manfred Mann's Earth Band. So that's going to be good. So that's all to come. So I will see you later. So bye for now.